Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. On this day in 1911, the priceless portrait was stolen off the wall at the Louvre Museum in Paris.
One night, at the Louvre Museum in Paris, something strange happened. The halls were silent. The marble floors echoed with the steps of janitors and guards making their nightly rounds. But tucked away in a quiet corner, in a small, unassuming gallery, hung a painting few people paid much attention to. It was a portrait of a woman with an unreadable smile. La Gioconda, the Mona Lisa. Within hours, she would be gone, and the world would never look at her, or at art, the same way again. It's August 21st, 1911. Paris is heavy with summer heat. The Louvre is closed to the public. It's a Monday, the museum's usual maintenance day. A man in a white worker's smock, the kind museum staff wear, strolls through the doors. He's not a stranger here. His name is Vincenzo Peruggia, a 29-year-old Italian glazier who once helped install protective glass on several artworks, including the Mona Lisa herself. To everyone else, he looks like any other employee, but in his mind, a plan is already unfolding. He makes his way to the Salon Care, the room where the Mona Lisa hangs between other paintings by great Italian masters. He carefully lifts the small, 77-53 panel off the wall. He removes the heavy frame. Then, unbelievably, he slides the painting under his coat.
He didn't think anything of it because it wasn't uncommon at the time for paintings to be moved, to be taken to the photographer.
He walks down a staircase and into a service corridor. A guard spots him and even helps him open a locked door, thinking he's just another worker. By 8:30 a.m., the most famous painting in history has quietly walked out of the Louvre. Hours later, a few artists wander into the gallery. They notice the empty hooks where the Mona Lisa once hung. At first, they think it's being photographed or restored. But as time ticks by, a chill spreads through the museum. By the afternoon, panic breaks out. The Louvre is evacuated. Doors are sealed. The French police, and soon Interpol, are called. The Mona Lisa is gone. Here's a secret most people don't know. In those first 24 hours, the Louvre had no real inventory system. Paintings could be moved for cleaning, or study, or photography without notice. It took a full 26 hours before anyone realized this wasn't a routine move. By then, the painting had vanished into the streets of Paris. Detectives scoured the city. They even questioned the man who would later become one of the greatest artists of all time, Pablo Picasso, after a friend of his was caught with stolen museum statues. Picasso wept during the interrogation, terrified he'd be blamed for the crime. He was eventually cleared, but it added another bizarre layer to the mystery. For 2 years, the Mona Lisa remained missing. Newspapers around the world plastered her face on their front pages. Her smile became a symbol of loss and intrigue. People lined up just to stare at the empty space on the wall where she used to hang. Then, in December 1913, a twist. In Florence, Italy, an art dealer named Alfredo Geri received a letter from a man calling himself Leonardo. The writer claimed to have the Mona Lisa and wanted to return her to Italy for a reward. Geri alerted the police and arranged a meeting. When Leonardo arrived, he carried a trunk. Inside was a wrapped panel, yellowed with age, unmistakable in its features. It was her. The man removed his disguise, and there he was, Vincenzo Peruggia. He confessed everything. He said he'd kept the painting in a trunk beneath his bed for 2 years. He insisted he wasn't a thief, just a patriot who wanted to bring Italy's treasure home. But investigators later found notes suggesting he might have planned to sell it. Here's a secret most documentaries skip. When police searched Peruggia's belongings, they found a list of wealthy collectors, including John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie, as potential buyers. So much for patriotism, huh? Peruggia served a mere 8 months in jail. When he returned to Italy, he was hailed as a national hero. Meanwhile, the Mona Lisa went on tour, traveling through Italy before being triumphantly returned to France. Ironically, her theft had made her a global celebrity. Before the crime, she was admired. After it, she was legendary. Now here's where things get weird. Some art historians believe Peruggia wasn't acting alone. They point to a shadowy figure named Eduardo da Valfierno, a supposed Argentine conman who, according to legend, paid Peruggia to steal the Mona Lisa while 6 expert forgers prepared identical copies. The plan? Sell each original to a private collector once the real one disappeared. Did this actually happen? No one's sure. Valfierno vanished, leaving no evidence behind. But the story's been repeated so often that it became a myth in itself. Another mystery orbiting that smile. You might think the 1911 theft was the end of her troubles. Oh no, the Mona Lisa has been attacked more times than any painting in history. Let's rewind to 1956. She's on display in Montauban, France, on loan for an exhibition.
The Mona Lisa very legitimately belonged in France. It had been bought by Francois I from Leonardo.
A man suddenly steps forward and throws acid at her. The bottom half of the painting bubbles and warps. She's rushed into restoration. Weeks later, she returns, scarred but alive. That same year, in December, a Bolivian man named Hugo Unzaga Villegas hurled a rock at the painting. It struck the glass, cracking it and chipping paint off her elbow. That's when the Louvre finally said, enough. They encased her in bulletproof glass, a first in museum history. But even that didn't stop her tormentors. In 1974, she was on tour in Tokyo. A woman in a wheelchair, furious about disability access at the museum, tried to spray red paint on her. The paint splattered the glass. The Mona Lisa, untouched, but the symbolism of protest had begun. 2009, a Russian woman denied French citizenship threw a ceramic mug at the painting. It shattered harmlessly against the glass. 2022, a man disguised as an elderly woman in a wheelchair smeared cake across the glass, shouting environmental slogans. Think of the Earth. And then, just recently, January 2024, climate protesters hurled pumpkin soup at her in another demonstration. Through it all, her smile never changed. Every attack told us something new. Not about the painting, but about us. About how one small portrait has become a symbol for nationalism, protest, even anger. And still she sits behind layers of glass, surrounded by security, smiling that same knowing smile, as if to say, you'll never really understand me. There's one more secret chapter during World War II. When the Nazis invaded France, the Mona Lisa was quietly spirited out of the Louvre in the dead of night. She traveled in convoys of unmarked trucks through the French countryside, hidden under mattresses and blankets, moving from one chateau to another. At one point, she was hidden in a salt mine deep underground. The Nazis wanted her badly, but they never found her. When the war ended, she returned to Paris, her smile unchanged, but her legend deeper. So, how many times was the Mona Lisa stolen? Once. But that one theft changed everything. It transformed her from a quiet Renaissance masterpiece into the most recognizable face on Earth. Today, more than 10 million people a year stand before her bulletproof case. They hold up their phones, elbow through the crowd, just to capture a smile that has outwitted thieves, protesters, and centuries themselves. One painting, one theft, 1,000 stories. If you ever stand before her, remember, the smile that launched a global obsession was once hidden under a coat, smuggled through a Paris doorway, and slept for 2 years under a carpenter's bed. That's not just art history. That's the greatest heist story ever told. If you love this story, hit that like button. It really helps. Subscribe for more thrilling tales of art, mystery, and history. And tell me in the comments, what masterpiece should we cover next?